Support for OutFront comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully, so you can be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/outfront.
OutFront next, your amnesia is complicit. That's what one senator tells a Trump cabinet secretary after she says she doesn't recall the president's S-hole comments. Are the president's allies losing all credibility? Plus, Steve Bannon grilled on Capitol Hill, and tonight, still going on. What is he telling investigators about President Trump and possible collusion with Russia? We're going on 10 hours here, people. And the White House doctor goes on and on answering an hour of questions about President Trump's health. Is there anything left to learn? Let's go out front. Good evening. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, how stupid do you think we are? Trump's allies in Washington are covering for him, and they shouldn't get away with it. The president called African countries S-hole countries, and it was racist. And tonight, Trump's allies are trying to pull a fast one on the American people. Today, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, who was in that heated meeting on immigration with President Trump and lawmakers, was grilled on Capitol Hill about what exactly the president said. And she conveniently couldn't remember.
You said on Fox News that the president used strong language. What was that strong language?
Let's see. Strong language, there was, apologies, I don't remember specific word.
Okay. So if we're to take the secretary at her word, and she says she doesn't remember, quote, strong language used by the president of the United States, then surely she doesn't remember specific words by others in the room, right?
I hear Senator Graham use profanity.
I did hear tough language from Senator Graham, yes, sir.
What did he say?
He used tough language.
Do you recall that the strong language he used repeated exactly what the president had said prior to that?
I remember specific cuss words being used by a variety of members.
So she does remember specific cuss words used by a variety of members of Congress, but not specific cuss words used by the president of the United States. So who does this administration think it's fooling at this point? Well, certainly not Senator Cory Booker.
The commander-in-chief, in an Oval Office meeting, referring to people from African countries and Haitians with the most vile and vulgar language. The language festers. When ignorance and bigotry is allied with power, it is a dangerous force in our country. Your silence and your amnesia is complicity.
Unfortunately, it's not just the Secretary of Homeland Security. Here are two Republican senators who also were in the meeting.
I'm telling you, he did not use that word, George, and I'm telling you, it's a gross misrepresentation.
I didn't hear that word either. I certainly didn't hear what Senator Durbin has said repeatedly.
Okay, to be clear, Senators Perdue and Cotton are, I don't even know if you can say playing with semantics. It's really an insult to anyone's intelligence. A senior GOP source familiar with the matter says to CNN that instead of hearing the president say, S-hole, some Republicans, Cotton and Perdue, heard Trump say, S-house. Okay. So, why would two sitting senators and a sitting cabinet secretary cover for the president when so many people know the truth? Well, all we can say is this. They're not alone in lying, and let's use the word lying for this president.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Of course it wasn't.
The president in no way, form or fashion has ever promoted or encouraged violence.
Of course, that wasn't true either. Here's the tape.
Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Or the president's national security advisor, when he came out, on his own, came out and knocked down reports that the president had revealed highly classified information in the Oval Office to the Russian foreign minister and ambassador. Here's H.R. McMaster.
The story that came out tonight, as reported, is false. At no time were intelligence sources or methods discussed.
Yet the president 1 day later directly contradicted McMaster, admitted to sharing the information with Russia. So many people seem willing to compromise their own honesty and integrity for this president. Jeff Zeleny is out front live at the White House. And Jeff, you know what's stunning here is that the White House itself, sources inside the White House admit this. They're not denying the president said S-hole or S-house, which, just to be loud and clear, is a distinction without a difference.
At the White House press briefing today, Erin, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders did not deny that the president used either of those words. She would not confirm exactly the profanity, the vulgarity that he did use, but she said, look, you all know the president can be politically incorrect, if you will. So she certainly did not deny it. Erin, at the end of this day here, though, on the second day of this week, the potential deal that seemed to be reached a full week ago with Republicans and Democrats now is completely blown out of the water. Now that government shutdown looming on Friday, Democrats are saying that they are not going to give votes on the spending plan without a deal on immigration or a pledge for a deal here. So all of this conversation here, that hearing on Capitol Hill, the briefing here today, Erin, it leaves everyone with really no progress on this at all. Both sides have dug their heels in. Senator Lindsey Graham, though, more than anyone, he says that the staff at this White House did not serve the president well. The president's mind was changed. He wanted to reach an immigration deal. So, Erin, again, getting close to that Friday deadline, no deal, no even outline of a deal seems to be in play between either side. Erin.
All right. Thank you so very much. And now, Tim Naftali, presidential historian and former director of the Nixon Presidential Library, April Ryan, White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks, and John Avalon, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast. And you're sitting closest to me, so you're first.
All right.
Does the White House truly believe that Americans are falling for this? I mean, what happened from the Secretary of Homeland Security today, from Senators Cotton and Perdue, is stunning.
It's pathetic, and it's desperate because they want to deflect, they want to dismiss, and they're hoping they can turn the page because they know they don't have a leg to stand on. Maybe they think they can fool part of their base, which is itself kind of an incredible condemnation of the way they really think about it. But we all know the White House didn't deny this report initially.
No.
They didn't until the next day with the president. And so you got surrogates who are sucking up to the president, trying to avoid the obvious, and it really shows how his influence ended up degrading their character, their integrity. It's just a pathetic mess across the board.
I mean, and that is, when you talk about people who have are seen as up-and-comers in their own party, their willingness to do this to themselves. Tim, the secretary today was also asked about whether she remembered something else, which many people in the room have said happened, which is that the president said he wants more immigrants from Norway. So he said, I don't want people from those S-hole countries, but I want more people from Norway. She said she heard the president describe Norway as the following.
They are industrious, that they are a hardworking country. They don't have much crime there. They don't have much debt.
All right. She left one point out, though, Tim, and let me just play that exchange. Here it is.
Norway is a predominantly white country, isn't it?
I actually do not know that, sir, but I imagine that is the case.
I'm sorry. That is laughable. That is laughable.
Yes.
Now, look, Norway does actually have a lot of migration, but Tim, of course, just to make it clear, 83% of the people who live in Norway are white.
Yeah, well, look, she runs the Department of Homeland Security. It's a department that is responsible for defending the homeland, which means it's a department that should understand.
I guess you don't need to know anything about Norway.
Well, no, you're supposed to know about outside countries. You're supposed to know that there are differences among them. Look, we are facing a very dramatic moment, okay, because we have a group of people in the White House who were scared by the prospect of a bipartisan compromise on immigration.
Right.
That's what this is.
Senators Graham and Durbin came to present. Let's just get on the setting for the meeting to begin with.
This is because for all the semantics and all the vulgarity, what's offensive about this is that the president had no moral compass on this. He flip-flopped. He told Graham, why do you think this meeting happened? He told Graham, come to the White House, and I'm ready to have a compromise. And then, I don't know whether it was Stephen Miller or who it was in the White House, found out, called hardliners and said, you better come quick because the president is about to give away the store. And so Cotton and Perdue come and just basically gin up the president and get him to say no. That's the problem.
April, I mean, the stunning moment, I mean, all of it's stunning, but the stunning moment when the Secretary of Homeland Security pauses and actually says, I don't know that. I did not know that about Norway being predominantly white. I mean, I don't even want to laugh at it because it's not funny, actually.
It's the only thing people know about Norway.
It might be the only thing many people know about Norway. Go ahead, April.
Unfairly.
It really is not funny. This is the person who's in charge of protecting the United States from all issues, foreign and domestic, to look and survey the globe and to survey what's here, and you don't know what the majority population is of Norway. I really find that astounding, but maybe I shouldn't, because there are a lot of people who are doing on-the-job training in this administration, so I don't know.
Well, you know what's interesting?
But what I will say,
go ahead.
I mean, it's we can't normalize this. These are people who are protecting us and leading us. This is serious, and for the head of Homeland Security to not know, I mean, either she's just. I don't know. I don't even want to assume, but it's just not. I mean, it's not good.
I think, in the spirit of, you have to laugh or else you'd cry. I think the reason it's funny is that we're all assuming that, of course, she knows that about Norway, but she feels politically uncomfortable to state the obvious.
Right.
Right, and that's sad. Yeah. And so, therefore, it's
By the way,
funny.
Norway's incredible wealth comes from the discovery of oil, which actually, if you look at the history, was from an Iraqi who came there. So they have a great reliance on immigrants in that country, and perhaps more appreciation than some in the White House.
The really sad thing.
And Africa's incredible wealth is its minerals and oil as well. Africa's incredible wealth is its minerals and oil as well.
Yes. In an authoritarian regime, people around the leader are uncomfortable about ever crossing the leader. We have people around the president who owe everything to him and are unwilling to say the president made a mistake. Yeah. That's all she had to say, but no one will say it. It's a very dangerous moment.
And then you had Sarah Sanders. The president obviously said, I'm not a racist. So she was asked to explain why he's not a racist.
Sure.
The answer actually is incredible. Here it is.
I think that is an outrageous claim. And frankly, I think if the critics of the president were who he said he was, why did NBC give him a show for a decade on TV?
Well, I guess now she trusts the judgment of the media that she says is fake.
Yeah. No, if that's the standard for racism, whether NBC gives you a TV show, let's say I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure the standard is being racist, saying and thinking racist things. So that deflection's so absurd. Again, don't even really know what to do with it.
Hey,
so irrelevant to the topic.
In Devil's Bargain, it's a very good argument. The president was popular, or then the candidate, then was very popular with African Americans, people of color, until he started the birther movement, and then the ratings dropped, and he still did the birther movement.
April, sorry, you were getting in.
Yeah, Erin, one thing Sarah does very well, she protects her boss, and she will continue to protect her boss. But there are holes in this argument about he's not a racist because he was on The Apprentice and ran The Apprentice. He may have had a large number of people watching, but there were at least 2 people on that show who won that there is questionable issues of racism with. Randall Pinkett from season 4, who was the winner, a black man, said Donald Trump is racist for reasons that he says, Donald Trump had said something about to him. This is what he's saying, that Donald Trump said that you should share the winning title with the runner-up, who was white. And then I think about, and going back to what the panelists just said about the birther movement in 2012, Arsenio Hall and Clay Aiken were pit against one another, and that's when the birther issue in Donald Trump was percolating. Donald Trump had to make a decision. Do I want to be considered a racist, or do I want to give this to Clay Aiken or Arsenio Hall? He made the choice, and many people kept saying he's going to choose Arsenio because he was in that hot water. And Arsenio Hall, he deserved it, but he definitely gave it to Arsenio Hall in the midst of that birther issue. So that, I understand what Sarah's trying to do, but that just brings more of a white hot light on the issue of racism with at least two winners who were black in The Apprentice.
Can I just say I am stunned, April, by your deep cut knowledge of The Apprentice seasons. I was not expecting that this evening.
Let me say this. No, you weren't expecting. It's called research, and I did happen to watch the Arsenio Clay Aiken, and I did watch the first season. What do you mean it's incredible? We have lives beyond television and beyond news, right? Don't try to diminish. Don't try to diminish me.
No, honestly, I am not. I am not. That's the farthest thing from my mind.
I think April. Maybe it got lost in translation via the remote.
As a kid.
Exactly. All right. Thanks to you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And next, breaking news, a new message from the Senate Majority Leader on a potential immigration deal. Are we about to get a government shutdown? Plus, Steve Bannon is still behind closed doors. He went in at 9:30 in the morning, I believe. Here we are, 7:30 at night. Hour 11 about to begin. We're talking about Russia right now. And the White House. The White House doctor spoke to reporters for nearly an hour. Everything. Does the president wear dentures? What medication does he take for baldness? They answered everything.
In need of great talent for your business, but short on time? You don't have to get lost in a huge stack of resumes to find your perfect hire. You just need the right tools, smarter tools. It can be challenging finding great talent to make your business successful. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click. Then ZipRecruiter actively looks for the most qualified candidates and invite them to apply. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes and industries to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/outfront. That's ZipRecruiter.com/outfront. One more time, to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/outfront.
Breaking news, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warning Democrats not to shut down the government over immigration.
It is clear that Congress has at least until March, at a minimum, and possibly even longer, to reach a compromise that resolves the DACA question. There is no reason why Congress should hold government funding hostage over the issue of illegal immigration.
Sunlen Sarfati is out front on Capitol Hill. And Sunlen, obviously, right now, as is getting down to the wire, a crucial moment. Is there any chance Democrats listen to McConnell?
Well, there are many Democrats, Erin, who have already been very clearly drawing their line in the sand on this, saying, no, I won't vote for any spending bill that does not include anything addressing DACA. Many Democrats have been very vocal about that in recent days. But here's where the big question turns for the Democratic Party. How far do they push this? Do they indeed push this towards a potential shutdown over their demands on DACA? This puts a lot of Democrats, especially those red state Democrats running in re-election races, in tough positions. Republicans here, at least Senate side, they need 60 votes to pass a spending bill through, which means they really only need the support of about 9 Democrats, depending on what Republicans end up voting for it. So they have some wiggle room here. And as the negotiations continue up here on Capitol Hill tonight, the question is, many Democrats want to see other things added to the spending bill, not only DACA, but what would get them to get on board. Many Democrats saying they want to see some extension of the CHIP extension there, the Children's Health Insurance Program money thrown in there. Will that be enough to corral those votes, to woo those Senate Democrats to vote for the bill? Still an outstanding question, but that's Senate side. There are major problems House side among Republicans as well to get this spending bill through. So a lot of issues and not a lot of time.
Right, certainly not a lot of time. Thank you so much, Sunlen. All right, well, the president's failure thus far to get an immigration deal done is his staff's fault. That is according to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
I think somebody on his staff gave him really bad advice between 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock on Thursday.
Of course, 12 o'clock is when that meeting happened, the now infamous meeting. As to who specifically gave the president that bad advice, Senator Graham would not say. But Democratic Senator Dick Durbin, who, of course, had that bipartisan deal with Lindsey Graham, and who is the man who confirmed what the president said in that immigration meeting first, was happy to come out and say who was to blame.
Any effort to kill immigration reform usually has Mr. Miller's fingerprints on it.
He's referring to Stephen Miller. Out front tonight, Rob Astorino, a friend of the president's for over 15 years, and Jen Psaki, White House Communications Director for President Obama. So, Jen, what does it mean if Stephen Miller is running the ship on this? He's young, obviously formerly had been a staffer for Jeff Sessions before he became Attorney General.
Well, first of all, Stephen Miller probably was behind the meeting and the orchestration of the meeting. It's no secret he doesn't like immigrants, especially if they're not white. I think the issue here is that Donald Trump hasn't really shown that he disagrees with him fundamentally. So who cares if Stephen Miller orchestrated the meeting? I think the question is, was Donald Trump speaking from his heart, speaking consistently with what we've heard him say about Mexicans, about siding with white supremacists? That's the piece of it that's been consistent, and that's the piece of it where who cares what Stephen Miller was behind? It's really about the president. That's where the buck stops.
And you know what? You're right about that, and I want to play that in a moment. But first, Rob, let me just for you, Stephen Miller. For those who don't know, look, he's a hardliner on immigration. He has a strong point of view. And he's talked about it. Here he is in a heated conversation when he actually took questions a few months ago in the briefing room with our Jim Acosta talking immigration.
Are we just going to bring in people from Great Britain and Australia?
Jim, actually, I have to honestly say, I am shocked at your statement that you think that only people from Great Britain and Australia would know English. It reveals your cosmopolitan bias to a shocking degree that in your mind, no, this is an amazing moment. And I just want to say,
it sounds like you're trying to engineer the racial and ethnic flow of people into this country.
Jim, that is one of the most outrageous, insulting, ignorant, and foolish things you've ever said. And for you, that's still a really... The notion that you think that this is a racist bill is so wrong and so insulting.
So this is the man, the young gentleman who is so influential on immigration policy in the White House.
Well, first of all, I think, as Jen said, who cares? Who cares what Stephen Miller thinks? I think the biggest issue here is where are we going with Friday? Friday is a potential shutdown. And what does a shutdown mean? It means, well, some of government is not going to be working, but most of the main things are. So it's a scare tactic right now that's being used as a diversion. We've talked about S-hole for 6 days. 6 days. And I think most people don't even care anymore since Friday night. And quite frankly, I don't think the Democrats want a deal on DACA. DACA is something very important to Democrats as they go into the 2018 elections. It fires up the base. It keeps the reflection off of them and onto the president. They can call him everything they want. I think a lot of it is totally untrue. But this is a way to keep their base going. A deal with DACA helps the president and the Republicans.
Okay, there are 800,000 people who are directly affected by this. I mean, let's get to the point because you both seem to agree. Okay, so Stephen Miller, think what you will about him and how influential he is. What matters is does the president agree with what he has to say? So I'm not talking about the Mexican rapist comment or ban on Muslims. I'm just going to talk specifically when the president was talking about DACA. Here he is.
We will immediately terminate President Obama's 2 illegal executive amnesties in which he defied federal law and the Constitution to give amnesty to approximately 5 million illegal immigrants. 5 million.
Look, it sounds cold and it sounds hard. We have a country. Our country's going to hell. We have to have a system where people are legally in our country.
We're always talking about dreamers for other people. I want the children that are growing up in the United States to be dreamers also. They're not dreaming right now.
Now, all of that, Jen, was during the campaign. He, at least publicly, has softened a bit since then. But do you think that reflects still his view?
Well, he's lightly flirted with the possibility of a deal. But for the most part, his consistent language has not strayed that much. I mean, in general, in terms of his view of immigrants and his view of minorities from what he said on the campaign. And sometimes it's become harsher. So his comments in the Oval Office, they're important for a range of reasons, but also because they were off the cuff. And they really reflect not him reading from a speech, but what his view is of a lot of the tenets of immigration reform, of DACA, of other things. So, what is his actual gut view? I think it's more telling to hear what he has to say off the cuff than it is what he has to say even from prepared remarks or a speech or what his spokespeople are saying.
And Rob, isn't that why S-hole, S-house is so important?
No,
it shows what he thinks about a whole range of countries. I don't want more people from there. I want more people from Norway.
I don't think, first of all, some of this should be alleged, right? Nobody was in the room with a camera.
Multiple. No, it's not. Multiple people who were in the room. Sources in the White House. Yes, different opinions.
Yeah.
S-house or S-hole.
Okay, but you know what? Let's just take that word and say, fine, he said it. to me, and I think most people, I was in a diner today, I was in a Burger King, I was all over the place the last 5 days. Nobody is talking about this. Everyone is talking about whether a DACA or immigration deal will get done, and ultimately that's what he's going to be judged on, not what he said and what people say he meant. But I think right now, again, the Democrats really don't want a deal because this is very important, more so to Republicans, to get a deal done on DACA, I think, because just like President Clinton is a hero to the Irish Americans because of the Northern Ireland Peace Accord, I think if the President Trump, ironically, is the one to get this done, that could be a very big, important step for Republicans with minorities, with Hispanics.
Well, they desperately need that.
They do.
All right. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And next, Bannon subpoenaed after refusing to answer questions from House Russia investigators. But here's the thing. The subpoena came in, and now he's still meeting with House members. It has been 10 hours, almost to the second, since it began. What is going on in there? And Trump's health. Is all that fast food taking a toll or not?
I told the president that if he had a healthier diet over the last 20 years, he might live to be 200 years old. I don't know.
Support for OutFront comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/outfront. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
President Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, refusing to answer questions today by the House Intelligence Committee for its Russia probe. And right now, at this moment, the breaking news is still there, behind those doors, on Capitol Hill. It was scheduled to start at 9:30, so now we're at 10 hours. Will this be 12 hours of Steve Bannon? I mean, this is pretty stunning. One Republican congressman saying Bannon repeatedly invoked executive privilege to avoid answering questions about Trump's transition in the White House, but it's been going on for 12 hours, so it's hard to imagine it's been no comment for that many questions. Evan Perez is out front, and Evan, this is pretty stunning. We're learning Bannon repeatedly at one point refused to answer some of these questions, then was issued a subpoena by the House Intel Committee. They got it done in the middle of the day, and so now here we are. He's still testifying. What's going on?
Right. I think, Erin, that's an indication that perhaps that subpoena did do its job, and now he's been able to at least answer the questions that have been asked of him. Of course, this is a position that we've seen before from people in this administration. They believe that because of their conversations with the president, they believe that there is a possible protection of an executive privilege, that they should not answer those questions. And obviously, you've seen lawmakers react very critically to that because they believe that they have a right to answer, to get these answers. And so we know that Bannon obviously has a lot of information. He was obviously not only came on to the campaign towards the winning end, but he also was there for the first 6 months of this administration. He was there during a lot of the tumult that has enveloped this administration. So I'm sure that there's a lot of people in the White House who are now perking up. That's the idea that Steve Bannon has been served a subpoena in the middle of the day and is now being forced to answer these questions.
So Evan, that wasn't the only subpoena today. We have this one in the middle of the day, which at least from what we're seeing appears to have worked. And then also today, the New York Times reported that in the middle of the day somehow, we learned he's subpoenaed by the special counsel Robert Mueller to appear before a grand jury and answer questions. Why is that important?
Well, for a couple of reasons, Erin. I mean, until now, we've seen people who are connected to the White House, people close to the president, have had cooperative, voluntary interviews with the special counsel. They've not had to be compelled to come before the grand jury. The way they've done this, the way the special counsel has operated is, as long as you're willing to come in cooperatively, they don't issue subpoenas. They're bringing you in, and then you have several hours of interviews, in some cases a couple of days of interviews. In this case, it appears that Steve Bannon did not want to provide that testimony, and so they had to issue a subpoena to come before the grand jury. I can tell you that there's a couple of reasons why people in the White House, I think, are paying attention to this. Certainly, he was aware of some of these meetings that happened not only during the transition, but as you have seen in those interviews, in those comments he made to Michael Wolff, he described the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting as treasonous. Those are things that I think the White House is going to be perking up at the idea that Steve Steve Bannon is going to be providing that testimony.
All right, Evan, thank you very much. And now Michael Zeldin, former special assistant to Robert Mueller, joins me. The former ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush, Richard Painter, and John Avlon is back with me. Adam Schiff, the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, was scheduled to join us, but obviously he's now unable because, well, it appears Steve Bannon has started to talk, and the testimony is now ongoing. So, Michael, let's talk about that. The meeting with Steve Bannon was scheduled to start at 9:30 a.m. He showed up on Capitol Hill. We saw him arrive by 8:30. It is now nearly 12 hours later, and he is still in that meeting with the House Intelligence Committee. What does this say to you, Michael?
Well, I hope they've fed him because it's a long day. But what it says is, one, that the first half of it was unproductive because of, I think, what was probably an inappropriate assertion of executive privilege. He forced the hand of the committee to subpoena him, which now allows him, he thinks, to testify about things which he might not have otherwise been able to, all of which I think makes no legal sense, but perhaps it gives him the cover that he wants. And now he's answering questions. Of course, when you're under subpoena, if you refuse to answer questions, you can be held in contempt. You couldn't otherwise do it. So it gives the committee more leverage to excise information out of him. So it's a long day, but, probably could have been a lot shorter if he started cooperating at the outset.
And it also certainly shows there's cooperation on the committee to get a subpoena out, which I think is something worth talking about, given some of the arguments on that committee that have been going on between Democrats and Republicans. Richard, what do you think, though? I mean, here we are in the middle of the day. Now you have this, we're at 7:30 at night. It's still going on. It would sound like Steve Bannon is now being quite loquacious. How risky is that for this White House?
Well, it depends on what Steve Bannon has to say. But it's clear to me that he has no incentive to take the risk of lying to Congress, which would be even more, put him in even more legal jeopardy than refusing to answer questions. Donald Trump threw him under the bus, as we saw over the past few weeks in reaction to the interviews he gave to Michael Wolff for the book. And so there's no loyalty there from Donald Trump to Steve Bannon. And he may be politically a supporter of President Trump still, but he is not going to put himself in legal jeopardy by not answering questions or lying. I would be very surprised if he were to lie to Congress.
So, John, here's the thing, right? We know, well, at least we know what Steve Bannon thinks off the cuff, right? I mean, he talked to Michael Wolff, who obviously needed nothing even close to a subpoena. Maybe, who knows, just hanging out. All right, but about that Trump Tower meeting, referring to that meeting, as Evan Perez pointed out, Wolff quotes Bannon, who, by the way, has not contested his quotes. Right. Even if you thought that this was not treasonous or unpatriotic or bad S, and I happen to think it's all of that, you should have called the FBI immediately. His only clarification was he was referring to Paul Manafort and not Donald Trump Jr. And but then this also, he then told Wolff, the chance that Don Jr. did not walk these Jumos, referring to the Russians, up to his father's office on the 26th floor is zero.
Yeah.
This is what he thinks.
Right. And so this presumably is the starting point for a lot of the questions. And what we know about why he's spent, 10 hours of testimony is extraordinary. This is a grilling. You got a well-done Steve Bannon up in Capitol Hill today. But the real drama was apparently that he was asserting executive privilege for the transition. That is controversial. No, far from clear that you can do that. So the head of the Intel Committee, Devin Nunes, who's been fairly tight with the Trump administration over this process, sent down a subpoena. So he has to talk, giving him, as Richard and others have pointed out, a degree of cover. But already there's bad blood, right? Steve Bannon has been kicked out into the street. This is free Stevie, and he's going to be talking a lot more loquaciously than he might otherwise been if he felt he had the Mercer's money behind his back, if he had his job at Breitbart, if he was still tight with the president. So that's a toxic combination for the Trump administration.
Yeah. Does Steve Bannon, in your assessment, have the information, a crucial information that could prove this, the big question about collusion or truly damage this president?
So he's got four broad areas that I think would be of interest to me were I on the committee. First, and not necessarily in this order, would be the money laundering allegations that he made. He said all roads through Manafort lead to Trump, and that is money laundering, and that there's financial shenanigans, at least perhaps crimes, underlying that relationship between Trump and others. That's one thing. Second thing, he was on the board of Cambridge Analytica. That was the data analytics firm that was targeting key districts in the swing states that Trump won unexpectedly. There's a theory out there that they were coordinating with the Russians about that. So that's a second area. The third is the Trump Tower meeting, which he called treasonous, irrespective of whether he was targeting at Don Jr. or Manafort. He called the meeting itself treasonous and said that Trump met with the Russians, and he knows, I presume, about what happened on Air Force One when the false statement about what that meeting involved was put forth. And then finally, whether he knows about the Flynn outreach to the Russians during the transition, that very late outreach, December 22nd into December 29th. All of those things implicate Mueller's mandate and possibly violations of criminal laws.
So other than that,
right. So pretty much everything. We'll see how long this goes. I mean, it is pretty stunning. As we said, at this moment, we are now at more than 10 hours in the actual testimony, and it is still going on. Thank you all. And next, the president is like, well, a lot of people, right? A lot of us. He wants to lose 10 or 15 pounds.
He's more enthusiastic about the diet part than the exercise part, but we're going to do both.
And Trump thinks his S-hole comments will play well with his base. Here's the big question. Is he completely right?
I'm starting to get an inkling why he uses Twitter in the way he does. Because if all he had to rely on is what people say about him, oh my God, I might not like the guy, but I love the guy.
New tonight, President Trump fit for office. That's what the White House doctor, after President Trump's first physical exam, has decreed. For nearly 60 minutes, Dr. Ronnie Jackson ticked through the president's vitals. All the details were in there. Weight, height, blood pressure, vision, the results from his dental exam. He even went so far as to reveal the president takes medication for hair loss. So why such a lengthy press conference? It was not the doctor's orders. It was the president's.
He said, I want you to get out there and I want you to talk to them and I want you to answer every single question they have. He called Sarah and he told Sarah, I do not want you pulling him off that stage. You leave him up there until he's ready to come off.
And he did answer questions. Our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, was at the press briefing. Sanjay, so much to talk about. We've learned a lot during nearly an hour. I mean, we went from knowing almost nothing about the president's health, sort of unprecedented, to now knowing more than we possibly have ever known about a president when he was in office. A ton of stats on his health, and his doctor, even revealing the president's just 1 pound shy of being clinically obese. I mean, no details omitted. He doesn't wear dentures. I mean, nothing was seemingly off the table. What's your takeaway?
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, Erin, I've never seen anything quite like this. I've been covering this for 16 years now. To have a White House doctor come out, as you point out, and answer questions for an hour like that, it was quite something. And he really did answer every last question in the room and only left after every question was answered. There was a lot of focus, as you might imagine, on his heart health. He's 71 years old. That's the big concern. That was a big topic of discussion. We know, as you mentioned, the president has high cholesterol. We know he has evidence of heart disease. We know he's borderline obese. But what Dr. Jackson really focused on was the fact that the function of his heart, by doing an echocardiogram, doing an EKG, and doing a stress test, he said all those tests were fine. So despite the other things, he still maintains that the president is in excellent health. So he's about 3.5-hour exam last Friday, and that was sort of the big conclusion, that he really doesn't have any concerns about his health at this time.
And 3.5 hours, I mean, that's a long annual. Yeah. I'm glad you put the time on it, because I think that makes people realize there were a lot of tests administered. That's and right. You asked about some of them, particularly on heart health. You talked about a CAT scan. Here's the exchange.
And was there something you were worried about specifically in getting the CT scan?
No, not at all. We got the CT scan just because we were debating. I didn't have any background information on him at all from a pulmonary standpoint. I didn't have old chest X-rays to look at.
What was your takeaway about that?
Well, it was interesting to have ordered a CAT scan. That's not typically something that's done during just a routine physical exam. What we came to learn as part of that exchange there, Erin, was that in the past, President Trump has had what's called a coronary calcium scan. What that means, it's looking for calcium in the blood vessels that lead to the heart. If you have that, that's an indication of some level of heart disease. Over the years, including this time around, he had that test repeated, and over the years, it's gone up steadily, which is an indication of heart disease. And it's part of the reason that they continue to monitor President Trump's heart, and part of the reason they're also going to increase the level of one of these medications, that cholesterol-lowering medication. Again, that's the big focus. As you point out, he had all sorts of different tests, even about a 10-minute long cognitive mental test, but it was the heart health that was sort of the big focus for him.
And certainly, I think it's important to point out, while there were some real concerns, they're also incredibly open about it, right? Answered all the questions. I mean, Sanjay, you point out there were questions about the mental health. There were a lot asked today. Dr. Jackson said the president himself insisted on doing a cognitive assessment test, basically to measure general intelligence. And just to give people a sense of it, it's the Montreal questionnaire, for lack of a better term, an example of it. Here's some questions. Copy the cube, draw a clock that says 10 past 11, name the animals that you see on the bottom there. And look, he was asked directly, Sanjay, whether this was a psychological evaluation. And he said, no, it's not. It's an intelligence evaluation. Does it put to rest questions about the president's mental health?
It is a screening test. I think that's the best way to look at it. Had he had any, if his score had come back lower than perfect, it could have warranted some other exams. It's not a perfect test, as you're pointing out. This is a 10-minute test to basically look to see if there are some glaring problems. But if someone does have dementia or something like that, it can start to pick that up, even sometimes before the person themselves recognizes it. I asked Dr. Jackson a few questions about this test. He seemed very confident that first of all, he says he wouldn't have ordered it on his own. As you point out, the president is the one that asked for it, and he says he doesn't think that there's any follow-up necessary because of how well the president did on this exam. He kind of, for himself, put the issue to rest.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. And out front next, taking the temperature of Trump voters 1 year on.
I'm tired of suave. I'm tired of polished. I'm tired of the teleprompter. I am. I want my country back.
And what's in a nickname? Our joking genie finds out. Tonight, a growing number of voices in the United States and abroad accusing President Trump of racism after his vulgar remarks about African countries. But what really matters at the ballot box in America is what some of his most staunch supporters think. So what's the answer? Martin Savage is out front.
Anywhere you look in Youngstown are reminders of what's been lost. Factories, jobs. The city's population is down by almost 2/3 from the 1950s. The economy wasn't just disappearing here, so was a way of life.
And I realized that the core foundation of our country is slipping away.
I mean, it got to a point where I did not like the direction that my country was going.
The answer for many was Donald Trump. In 2016, according to the Mahoning County Board of Elections, approximately 7,000 registered Democrats switched parties to become Republicans.
He said he's going to make America first and he's going to bring jobs back.
Donald Trump said you're in lousy trade deals. We fixed that. The jobs can come back.
Something that he said that really sticks with me is that he wants to give the power back to the American people, and that's something that I can certainly get behind.
I'm with a pastor, a stay-at-home mom, a student, a machine shop worker, and a union member. Democrats or raised in Democrat families who crossed over to vote Trump.
We're 1 year in. How's he doing?
Fantastic.
Phenomenal. Great. Better than I ever would have dreamt. I mean that sincerely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Derek?
Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
Yes, he's doing wonderful. He's staying on task.
We start with a hot-button topic of the moment.
How big an issue to all of you is immigration?
Huge.
Huge.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. In Youngstown, Ohio?
Absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, they're stealing jobs of rightful citizens.
It's also about something else Trump voters say is important: rules and respect.
I feel like when people come here illegally, that's just very disrespectful. You don't respect our laws, and you shouldn't be able to come here freewheeling like that.
A year later, they all still want the wall. As for the president's inflammatory tweets and speech, Gino says he used to cringe, not anymore.
So you don't cringe anymore because you've grown numb to it, or
no, not numb at all. But I know what he's done, and I'm starting to get an inkling why he uses Twitter in the way he does. Because if all he had to rely on is what people say about him, oh my God, I might not like the guy, but I love the guy. I love the job he's doing.
Justice met Trump at a rally and says he's not a racist.
He was just the nicest person, and honestly, if he was a racist, as everyone paints him out to be, he could have just walked right past me and not even said a word.
What about the lies?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think he is a liar?
Do I think he's lied? No. Do I think he's fallen short in some of his goals? We all do.
Economically, they say things are getting better. The stock market and their home values are up.
Industries are booming. Everywhere I've seen.
I look around here, I don't see a boom.
Well, in this area, no, but I feel like there's small businesses that are starting to pick up.
Derek says Trump's tax reform will fuel the recovery.
If you expand your business in the inner city, so then my community will benefit from this tax cut.
Do you think the media gives the president a fair shake?
I don't think so at all.
No.
1 year later, these voters couldn't be happier. They see achievement. Most of all, they see a president like them.
And he's like tenacious sometimes and says stuff off the cuff like we do, like real Americans do. You know, we're not perfect. I'm tired of suave. I'm tired of polished. I'm tired of the teleprompter. You know, I am. I want my country back.
At the end of our interview, I wanted to find out if there was any buyer's remorse on the part of any of those voters I was talking to. So I asked them, I said, if you could do it over, would you vote the same way? Every one of them said they would. And then on top of that, they said they will. And I asked, what does that mean? They said they're all going to vote again in 2020 for Donald Trump. Erin?
All right. Thank you very much, Marty. Some really important reporting there. And next, Jeannie Mouse on some new additions to the president's roll call nicknames.
Lion Ted, Little Marco, Little Rocket Man.
Who, Pocahontas?
Tonight, one of Trump's favorite pastimes, coining nicknames, got a new addition. Here's Jeannie Mouse with the reviews.
All President Trump did was add a Y. Why not?
He's calling him Dickie Durbin.
Dickie Durbin.
He's called you names. Dickie Durbin.
Senator Durbin probably got used to hearing Dickie back in 5th grade. But now,
Senator Dickie Durbin.
It's a 71-year-old man using the nickname, the latest addition to that ever-growing list.
Lion Ted, Little Marco, Little Rocket Man.
Who, Pocahontas?
Jeb Bush, we call him low energy. Crooked Hillary Clinton.
I really could care less.
Senator Durbin called his nickname
something I should wear with honor. If the president wants to throw adolescent rants at me, that's his business.
President Trump's nickname for his former strategist, Steve Bannon, got rave reviews.
That's why Sloppy Steve is now looking for a job.
Sloppy Steve immediately entered The Daily Show's Hall of Nicknames at its Trump presidential Twitter library, where you can also put your own name into the Trump nickname generator if you want to flagellate yourself with random results like impotent Jeannie Mouse. But critics describe Dickie Durbin as kind of uninspired. It took President Genius 4 days, and the best he could come up with was Dickie? Sad. Tweeted someone else, I'm surprised he didn't also go with Dirt Bin. The nicknamer-in-chief tends to get an A in branding, but barely passes punctuation. For instance, little Bob Corker, the Tennessee senator.
Why does he put an apostrophe at the end of little? It drives me mad. That apostrophe is like Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. No one knows what purpose it serves. But it's damned if it's not always hanging around towards the back.
Tweeted one reporter, I think the apostrophe after the E will be what finally breaks me.
Lion, L-Y-I-N apostrophe.
Jeannie Mouse, CNN.
L-Y-E-N, lion.
New York.
Oh, always love Jeannie. And that one, award-winning. Okay, thank you for joining us. Anderson starts now.